Hi, this is Robyn from Wokingham Decorating Services with a product review for the Decorators Forum. Today I'm taking a look at Pioneer's new Spirit Renaissance paintbrush. So let me tell you my first impressions when I opened the package that the postman brought. I opened the package up, had a quick look inside, saw this brush and thought, natural bristle, when am I next using an oil-based product? And I'll give this a try. And that's wrong. This is not a natural bristle brush. It may look like one at first glance, but it's not. And you need to get over that preconception because this is much more than that. It comes in a rigid plastic case. It's really solid and sturdy. It's going to help keep the brush in shape and help protect it in the van. So that's a big plus for me. And it also has these little air holes drilled into the plastic case. I don't know what they're designed for. I'm guessing it's so that if you put the brush in there when it's still damp, it can breathe and the moisture can escape, which is quite a clever idea. Attached to the plastic case, there's a little leaflet with some background information and history of the company, which is quite interesting. And then on the brush itself, when you open up the plastic case, there's a paper collar wrapped around the brush with product information and claims and how to look after your brush. All of these things, they're only little details, but they just give you that first impression that this is a quality product, that it comes from a company who really care about it and have put the package together as a whole quite thoughtfully and quite carefully. So it makes a great first impression. The brush itself has a nicely made natural wooden handle, a stainless steel ferrule, and when you take a closer look at what I initially thought were natural bristles, it's actually an unusual blend of black and thicker blue filaments. And I'm going to come and talk about those filaments in a bit more detail later on. It feels like a really full brush, like there's a good weight to the brush head itself. You know, some brushes you buy, I'm not going to name names here, they're very accurate, but there's no body to them. They don't hold a lot of paint and you're constantly going back and forth to the tin, dipping the paintbrush in to work with it. This feels like it's going to hold a lot of paint because it's a good, thick, full-bodied brush. And that, again, creates a great first impression for me. Having a look at what Pioneer claim about their new Spirit Renaissance brush, they say it's suitable for both oil and water-based paints. I'm not recommending you use the same brush for both. I would personally never use a brush that I've used for oil for a water-based product, but this they do say is suitable for both. So I guess you have one brush for use with oil and one brush for water, and you've got to label them up yourself or write on them or whatever so you know which is which. But having used it, I can see why it would actually work with both types of paint. They say it has a high pickup and release of paint, and that it's designed specifically to hold its shape and give a really smooth finish. Now, as Jennifer Aniston used to say, pay attention, here comes the science bit. I'm not an expert, but one of the first things I noticed about this brush was the unusual blend of black filaments, which I mistakenly thought initially were natural bristle, and blue filaments mixed in with them. So I emailed Pioneer to try and find a little bit more about how this brush is made, because I'm a bit of a geek like that. I like to understand how things work. They told me there's a blend of at least 3 different types of filament go into making up this brush. Some of them, if you look at them in cross-section, are sort of X-shaped, which means they have a much bigger surface area so they can pick up and hold on to more paint. Some of the filaments are very, very fine and flagged at the ends. If you think about that as like split ends in hair, it means that at the tip of the brush, there are lots of very, very fine pieces there, which will help you to give you that really fine finish without too many brush marks. And then there are also some thicker, firmer filaments in there. I'm guessing they're the blue ones, but I may be wrong on that, which help the brush hold its shape. So none of it is natural bristle at all. It's all 100% synthetic, man-made. But having learnt all that, I can see that each of the filaments has a role to play in helping this brush to live up to the claims that Pioneer make about it. I can see that they put a lot of thought into designing this brush and it all kind of makes sense to me. So that's the theory. How does the brush perform in practice? I should say first up, we're in lockdown here at the moment, and so work opportunities have been a bit limited, but I did get a chance to use it, and I'll say straight up front, I was quite impressed. The brush is really comfortable to use. It fits really nicely in your hand, feels well balanced. I know everybody's hands are different shapes and sizes, but my first impression was it almost feels like an extension of me. It fits so well in my hand. So I went to use it on this job. I thought I'd set up some sort of scientific test where I'd compare it to other brushes and see how much paint it would hold and how far along the wall I could get with it. In the end, I gave up because trying to hold a video camera and a paintbrush and a pot of paint and a tape measure all at once, it's just a disaster. But now I understand a bit about how Pioneer have designed the brush and the way that the thought processes they put into it. I will say it does pick up a lot of paint and release it very evenly over quite an impressive area of the wall. It definitely lives up to that promise. For information, I was using it with Johnson's acrylic durable eggshell in a storeroom round at the village hall where I was able to work safely during the current crisis. And yeah, it does put a lot of paint onto the wall. So it definitely lived up to that promise. It also, I have to say, does produce a pretty good finish. There were no brush marks. And for that reason, I would be interested to try it with some oil-based paint and see how it gets on. I may do another little review on it at some point in the future and see if I can use the brush in that situation. After one use, I've cleaned it. It has held its shape pretty well. That's not really something you can test after just one use. Like maybe I'll come back in 6 months and we'll see how after repeated use it's holding its shape. But so far so good. So yeah, it's lived up to its promises at this point. So the $6 million question is, would I buy one? And the answer is yes, I would, depending on the price. As long as it's not ridiculously overpriced, it's a good brush, and yes, I would buy one. I did a little bit of a search on the internet trying to find out how much they were, and there's very little, if any, information anywhere about it. So I'm guessing that's because it's either very new or not even out on the market yet. But yeah, it's a good brush. It feels very comfortable in use. It did a good job. The science behind the filaments and how it's designed, as it was explained to me, makes good sense, and it lived up to its promises. Yes, it did lose a couple of bristles the first time I used it, but that was very early on, and I'm guessing there were just one or two loose ones from the manufacturing process, because it was fine after that. So overall, it's a good brush. I was impressed with it. I'd recommend it, with the slight caveat that I've only used it the once in a relatively small room, and obviously I'm going to carry on using it and see how I get on with it. But first impressions, very, very positive. So that was my review of Pioneer's new Spirit Renaissance brush for the Decorators Forum. Thank you for listening.